Welcome back to Chat Chit. That's round 21 in the books for the 2025 AFL season. We had primetime footy well and truly back this week. No more Essendon rubbish until a couple of weeks from now. But we had 6 proper contenders playing against each other in Thursday night, Friday night and Saturday night footy. We're going to kick off talking about the best of those, which was on Friday night.
Absolutely pissing down here at the top. Marcus has kicked it. Jesus! Usain Bolt wouldn't get him now.
The legend becomes immortal.
Well, this game was a little bit of a weird one. There were perfect conditions at Adelaide Oval on Friday night, and it was about 90% of goals were kicked down at one end. It was Hawthorn who got away early, kicking 5-1 in the first. Adelaide with a huge bounce back in the second quarter. Then it was a bit more 50-50 in the third quarter, but it was Hawthorn who got the better of it. You thought maybe they'll be able to cruise home, but Adelaide came storming home to finish the game up. And it was Jordan Dawson in the second quarter that really got them going with the 2 goals. And I don't know if you noticed, but it was the coach went directly to Dawson at quarter time and addressed him. And I don't know what he said, and then he addressed the whole group. But whatever he said to Dawson really got him going because he kicked 2 goals and it got Adelaide going for the night.
Yeah, Adelaide, as a team which hasn't been playing a lot of huge games against finals contenders in recent years, well, now they're doing that without much experience, but they did not look like it. 5 goals down to 0, down 33-1 or something against Hawthorn at their home ground. They did not get flustered at all. They kicked the next 8 goals. So what does that say about your side? I don't think there was actually too much wind. I think it was just crazy swings in the momentum of the game. The
conditions were perfect.
Yeah. As you say. So Jordan Dawson was enormous, kicks 2 belting goals in the second quarter to get Adelaide back in it. But for Hawthorn, a really, really tough one to take because they're playing the top 3 teams on the ladder. This one, Adelaide, and then Collingwood and Brisbane, all in their last 4 games. They needed to get across the line here. Collingwood and Brisbane are going to be just as difficult prospects, with them both fighting for top 4 spots. And Hawthorn, with this loss, could easily be the team that drops out of the 8.
And also a huge loss for Hawthorn with Will Day probably being out for the season, which you're not really sure how their midfield's going to be able to function and win those massive battles without him, especially up against Brisbane in a couple of weeks' time. It's going to be a huge heavyweight battle. With Brisbane's midfield really ticking over, you'd probably expect them to get beaten up. Moving to the next game, which was the grand final replay of 2 years ago, Collingwood-Brisbane. Well, Collingwood beat them up earlier in the year, smashed them, and Brisbane weren't having any of that. Dunkley sort of went to Dacos, had him around stoppage, and ended up getting up 30-odd touches himself. But it was guys like McCluggage, Logan Morris he doesn't really get a lot of talk because Thilthorpe and Darcy probably take the headlight. But 6 goals in this game. He had 5 goals against the Giants, 5 goals against Geelong. He's a big game player. He's obviously a premiership player at 19 years old. He's just turned 20. And, I mean, Brisbane smashed them probably all night.
Yeah, Brisbane with a much better team in the midfield, and that just spread out to the rest of the field as well. But it was really in the midfield that the damage was done. As opposed to last week, where the Gold Coast midfield really limited the damage of Neil, McCluggage, Dunkley, Ashcroft, that core unit. It was the opposite here. They were the 4 biggest ball getters of the game, and if you're going to let Brisbane's 4 most damaging players be the 4 have the ball more than anyone else on the ground, then you're not going to win the match. Collingwood, to put it in a bit of context, this is in their last 4 games, 3 losses and a very unconvincing win on Richmond. And I'm not the only one picking up on this. It's very shaky in the footy media world. Everyone's realising that Collingwood are in the worst form out of any of these 9 teams contending for finals. They could easily lose their top 4 spot. As we say, they still have that huge game against Hawthorn.
Followed by a big game against Adelaide.
Yeah, so it's a difficult run for Collingwood here. They were 3 wins ahead of the rest of the league, and they might finish outside the top 4. But we know they have the quality. And if they slip into 5th, you don't want to be playing them in an elimination final come round 1 of finals.
What I want to ask is Josh Dunkley a sneaky for all Australian? Because he's putting up huge numbers, and he's just that defensive midfielder for Brisbane that lets the Neils, McCluggage, Ashcroft, whenever Rayner runs through there. Zach Bailey was huge in the second half. Just allows them to sort of do their thing. He'll take the midfielder, the star midfielder each week, and does a really good job, gets his own balls, damaging on both halves of the field. But he's putting in a serious finish to the season.
Yeah, I reckon it's whether they want to pick 2 Brisbane midfielders, because I think McCluggage
looks like he's locked it up, especially when you do that on prime time against Collingwood in that sort of atmosphere, and everyone knows that one kick where he looked inside, had that one look, and then found Cam Rayner right about 20 metres out right in front.
Yeah, there's also the dynamic where a lot of people reckon Hugh McCluggage has been snubbed 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
There's a whole Hugh McCluggage fan club that reckon he's really one of the best midfielders in the game, and he's proved it this year. I don't think he'll get snubbed again. Maybe they pick Dunkley as well. And then Bulldogs GWS on Thursday night. Don't worry, Aiden's going to get right into that game later. But now we're going to go into our top 5 players of the round.
I'll kick us straight off. At number 5, I had Brodie Grundy. Now, he put up career best numbers, 39 touches. I mean, almost 40 touches for a ruckman is just outrageous, but there wasn't really much competition in that game for him. Goldstein did his best to keep up, but he smashed both Essendon and ruckman all around the ground. He was just taking it out the ruck all day, and it's tough not to pick a ruckman. I felt that got 39 touches in a game where it was a really tough watch, especially as a spectator from the stands. Where probably the highlight of the game was when a groundsman came on and filled a little hole in the field, which was probably got the biggest cheer throughout the whole night.
Yeah, my number 5 for the round was Jordan Dawson, who we've already mentioned. Now, he had 21 touches, but maximum impact. 2 huge goals when Adelaide needed it most. Leads the game in tackles, which he does so often. And to be the most damaging player on the field and still lead your team in tackles week in, week out. This is what I've been saying about Jordan Dawson, what everyone is recognising. He's absolute captain material. We can all see why he was named captain at a young age at Adelaide. He just leads from the front, puts in as much effort as any player on the field, and then he's got the most quality in the team by miles. You're just not going to go with his quality. So he was the best player on the ground, and you've just got this whole Adelaide core all performing at their best, and that's being led by Jordan Dawson.
Yeah, he looks a real potential for All-Australian captain. It hurts every time he puts in a performance like that we had him at Sydney, and he's the perfect player that we'd love to have in that Sydney
We
midfield.
knew exactly how good he was as well. It's not like
100%.
he suddenly shot up after he left.
100%. At number 4, I had Max Holmes. Now, in a game I'm not sure a lot of people would have watched, it was sort of just how many times can we get the ball to Jeremy Cameron. He ended up with 5, I believe, but they were looking for him over and over. He got sick, ended up with 6. He had 2 goals, 35 disposals, about 900 metres gained. Huge game for him, and we know that if you can't stop him and Bailey Smith, they're probably going to get you.
Yeah, he's just about a lock for All-Australian, I reckon. My number 4 is Brodie Grundy, who you've already mentioned. Speaking of All-Australian locks, it's...
Some people don't share that opinion. Some people are all about Gawn.
Yeah, I love Gawn. He's maybe my favourite player, not at the Swans. I just think Brodie Grundy's season has been out of this world. And it's not just been the second half of the year. The second half of the year, he's just been head and shoulders above the rest. But he was quality in the first half of the year too. No other ruckman is putting up these numbers. And it's not just the numbers, it's the cleverness. He's got to be the best in the ruck contest as well in the second half of the year. There's been multiple game-winning moments for Sydney where he's just tapped it straight into the hands of Errol Goulden on the run or Isaac Heaney on the run. He just uses his experience so well. 22 contested possessions and 13 clearances. Led the game with 39 disposals. As a man that's standing at 6'10", there's no one like him. I reckon he's got to be All-Australian.
Well, I think he grew up really wanting to be a midfielder and sort of just got too tall and ended up becoming a ruckman because he tries all these cool things, like he did an outside of the foot kick a couple of weeks ago and gave the ball away. Or he does those weird the spins and he picks it up and it's really good off the ground, but he's really good around the ball. He allows sort of the Swans to move the ball. He's almost that extra midfielder, which is why he probably has... I think he's got a little bit more than Gawn this season because he's doing the intercept marking, which we haven't really seen from him in previous seasons, but he's allowing us to transition the ball a little bit quicker and his ability to take out of the ruck and get us going.
Yeah, I think if you go Gawn as the Australian ruckman, you got to put Grundy on the bench. I think even if you think Gawn's been better, Grundy's got to be there.
I'll move on. In my number 3, I had Logan Morris. So we talked about it a little bit earlier. 6 goals, nothing. I know he did have an out on the full at the end, but monstered that Collingwood defence. He's putting up performance after performance, and like I said, he's not really in that conversation with Thilthorpe and Darcy, but he's tracking well towards it the way he's playing at the moment. And with the Brisbane, the way they're playing now, he could definitely be a 2-time premiership player at the end of the year.
Yeah, he's stepped into Joe Danaher's boots in a lovely way. a lot of people were worried, and I was worried that would be a real hole in Brisbane's profile. But Logan Morris has been better this year than Danaher was last year in every single metric.
But just think about when he grows into his body. He's just 20 years old. Yeah. So he's going to get a lot better than he is now.
Yeah, he was my number 2 for the round because he was so dominant in such a huge game. My number 3 was Nick Vlaston. So he is sitting in a back pocket in a team that loses by 84 points, and I reckon he was the best player on the ground. Obviously, Noah Anderson and Matt Rowell were monster. They always are. Hard to compare those performances. But Nick Vlaston he's ethereal as a defender. He's so strong in the air as a guy that's he's probably below average height for an AFL defender, and he plays like a key defender when the ball's in the air, and when the ball's on the ground, he's like a Tom Stewart or a Rory Laird, the way that he can just use his skills and get the ball out and to a teammate. Goes at 90%, takes multiple contested marks, 4 free kicks because the Gold Coast forward line just couldn't deal with him. He was causing so many problems. So Gold Coast was sending a lot of inside 50s, and Nick Vlaston was a huge part of the fact that Gold Coast only scored 107 points. It could have been a hell of a lot more. So I'm so impressed with what he's doing, and I really, we're mentioning All Australian a lot because it's getting towards that time of the year. I think he's got to be in the back pocket.
It's tough to do it from a team sitting near the bottom of the ladder when you don't get a lot of there's not a lot of popularity around. No one's really watching your games. When you have a game like this against Gold Coast, when you lose by 80 points, no one really thinks a defender could have a good game like that. But he seems to do it week in, week out. And I wouldn't be surprised if he makes at least the 40-man squad at the bare minimum.
Yeah.
I'll move on to my number 2. I had Tim English at number 2. He showed us a bit about what he did a couple of years ago when he made that All-Australian team. His ability to get around the ground. We know he's not as strong in the hitouts, but when he can move, and he's really mobile as a ruckman, when he can get forward, and he was beating Briggs up all day, and he kicked 2 goals, 3. Probably should have kicked 3 or 4 goals on the day, but when he can get forward and become that third tall, when you have Norton, Darcy, and English, they have so many options with those kickers inside 50. And he absolutely smashed Briggs on the day. And I think it was a huge part as why Bulldogs got the better of them.
Yeah, I couldn't fit Tim English in because my number 1 was his teammate, Marcus Bontempelli, my number 1 player of the round. So on the stat sheet, this was a below average game for Bont, but when you look deeper in it, and if you watched the game, I don't think he did anything wrong throughout the game. It was by far the Bulldogs' biggest win of the year. They break the curse of going 1-9 against the top 9 teams, which Aiden's going to talk about later. But Marcus Bontempelli he just led from the front, 27 disposals. More than half of his disposals were involved in a score. More than half of them. He went at 92% despite leading the game in clearances, so that's tough work in the contest. He doesn't have a single clanger for the match, and 11 contested possessions with 2 goal assists. He was as close to a perfect performance as you're going to get.
And I probably didn't pick up on this performance in my top 5 because he just seems to do it week in, week out now. And you think he's probably a lock for All-Australian as long as he meets those minimum games. And I think he just has to play at least 2 out of the last 3 to meet the game standard. My number 1, I had Hugh McCluggage as my best player in the round. He's really silky. I think that's the way to put it. It's like whenever he has the ball, it feels like he's got a little bit more time just to get his head up and pick out an option. The way he presents the ball inside 50, can break through a tackle. No matter how many times he gets caught holding the ball, he will continue to try and drive through tackles and create the space. I know Lachie Neale was the guy you go to tag. I think this is the guy you have to go to.
Which has been the case this season.
Yeah, I think he's the most damaging midfielder that Brisbane have, which is scary because if you go to him and try and lock him away, then you've got the Ashcroft brothers, you've got Neale who can get you. But what McCluggage did, he had 34 disposals, 2 goal assists. I think it was only 6 score involvements, but it's what he does in the back half as well, finding those little kicks just to get Brisbane out of trouble. We saw his quality in the forward half as well, just picking out Cam Rayner in the corridor. But yeah, huge game for him, and if they do win the premiership, he'll be a big part of it.
We'll move on to hits and misses.
So as we've talked about a little bit, my hit is the Bulldogs this week. So it was their second biggest halftime score ever under Luke Beveridge. And hopefully this is the confidence boost that they needed against the top 8 side to put in this push towards finals. I think they'll make it. It's sort of going to come down to beating Freo in that final round, which is going to be huge for both teams. And they're going to be a real contender come September. You're not going to want to play them, especially with Darcy and Norton in this sort of form. They're probably the best forward duo in it. The midfield is stacked with some of the league's best players, as everyone can probably see. Tim English can hopefully continue this form, and then it's up to their defence to stand up. I mean, they keep switching names. Is it Jones? Is it Buslinger? O'Donnell?
Cleary.
Yeah, they've got a lot of guys running through there, and if they can sort of get that sorted, then you'd think they're going to play a big part in September. Darcy can do it against anyone. Norton is playing career best footy. Riley West continues to tick it over, and if they make it, you're not really going to want to play them.
I think they are an absolutely terrifying prospect. You'll see in my power rankings later what I've done with the Bulldogs, because I think you can almost put aside that 1-9 record. This game has just reversed all of that, because that is terrifying. GWS have just won 6 in a row, and they're fighting for top 4 and top 8. Before this round, there was a lot of talk that they could sneak into that top 4, especially with Collingwood's run home, and they've just gone out there and lost by 88 points to the Bulldogs. So the Bulldogs are terrifying if they're firing. My hit for this week was about Adelaide, and specifically their defence. My hit last week was Adelaide, but I really want to focus in on their defence this week, because you've got guys who would have been considered fringe players if Adelaide had another bad year this year, players that could have been delisted in some people's eyes, but clearly this is not the way that Matty Nix saw it, or the people inside of Adelaide. I'm talking about Mark Keane, Josh Worrell, who has been very promising for multiple years, except you've got a whole unit back there, Wayne Malera, Max Michelani, who have just taken all a huge step up this year. They truly play as a unit. As Swans fans, we really understand this, that, we talk about how our defence sometimes plays at its best when our star fullback is injured, because they come together and play as a total unit, converging on every aerial ball, making their best decisions possible, not mucking about, and that's what this Adelaide defence does every game. Something that I've said earlier on this year is there's not a household name back there, but they are the second best defence in the competition after 21 rounds in the advanced metrics. So this is a team that did not have more than 21 disposals from any player this week, but they held on largely on the back of this defence against a really dynamic Hawthorn forward line. Hawthorn tried 4 tools who all looked dangerous at different points, and then we know that the Hawks small forwards can kill you, but Adelaide dealt with it all. And I'm just really, really in love with this backline.
And you'd think if they can finish in one of those top 2 spots, they've probably got one foot in the grand final with those 2 home finals at Adelaide Oval. I'll go to my hit. So it's just this round there was a change in umpire interpretation for pushing the back. And there's sort of a lack of consistency, as there is with umpiring, and implementing this across all games in the round. So the interpretation has changed to sort of crack down further on pushing the back. So any sort of hands in the back, regardless of really strength of the push, is now expected to be called a free kick. I'm not a fan of it. I don't mind a little tiny push just to get a position out the back. But I think in the early rounds, especially, I paid a lot of attention in the West Coast Melbourne game. There was a lot of push in the backs called. But then later on, when I was at the Swans game, there were a lot of push in the backs not called. In the Port Geelong game today, I felt there were quite a few that were missed. So it's a little bit interesting to change something this late in a season. I don't agree with it, but as long as they're consistent, then it should be fine.
Yeah, let's just call more free kicks. You know what I mean?
Yeah, let the umpires control the game a little bit more.
Yeah, there's not enough free kicks. Let's call more. But yeah, the main thing is the inconsistency. But I reckon you ask all footy fans, such a large majority would say, let's just have less free kicks, less umpire interference, and let the boys play as long as it's consistent. My miss for the round was also not with the players, and it was at Fox Footy. The fun police, the nickname police.
Oh, they went back on their word.
By Saturday, they were sticking to it. And I'm hearing Hutto being called Anthony, and they're not even calling Chief Jace. They're calling him Jason.
Yeah.
And I turned on Channel 7, and, it shows slightly lower definition, but it was worth it. Just to
it was when
get rid of this weird tension.
It was when Mark Howard called Kingy David. That I was like, I'm not listening to this anymore. But they've gone back on their word. It didn't last very long. I'm not exactly sure whose idea that was.
You got so many things going on to run this. To run this media unit and organisation. And clearly they've had multiple meetings about this. I don't know who could have raised this or how this became a priority.
Who's led the conversation? And it's been such an important thing that we can't use nicknames. Anyways, I like it. It's a good miss for the week. I'll go straight into my footy pyramid. So last week there were no ins, no outs. The whole top 15 were performing pretty well, but we got 3 outs this week. So
Wowzers.
So Sarong is out of the pyramid, was kept really quiet.
Tagged out of the game.
Was completely tagged out of the game. He was hunted by more than one player. Zach Butters was kept really quiet in his game, and he was also on the fringe of the top 15. And Callahan as well is also out of the pyramid. Didn't have his greatest game. They couldn't get any sort of the orange tsunami going, and he couldn't wrestle the game back in the Giants' momentum at all. Which means we have 3 new ins, all coming into the 5th tier. Lockie Neal is going to enter the pyramid. It's just sort of ticking it over a little bit under the radar. Sam Darcy's going to come back into the pyramid, and Riley Thilthorpe is going to come into the pyramid.
It's his debut, surely. All-time debut.
He might have been in there for a week or two earlier in the season.
Okay.
But they're bringing some tools back. I like it. And joining them in the 5th tier, Max Holmes is going to hold his spot. It was really tough to move him up, and Isaac Heaney is going to move down a tier. Moving into the 4th tier, Jordan Dawson's going to hold his spot. Hugh McCluggage is going to move up a tier. Grundy is going to hold his spot. And Matt Rowell is going to hold his spot. Moving into the 3rd tier, Nasai Wangani Malira is going to hold his spot. Jeremy Cameron is going to hold his spot. And Nick Dacos is going to move down a tier. Moving into the 2nd tier, Ed Richards is going to hold his spots. And Noah Anderson is going to move up a tier. Another ridiculous game from him. And he's also a chance to be the All-Australian captain, and you'd think he's probably... We're seeing so many guys have to be locks for the All-Australian team.
We had a really interesting week for the Brownlow race this week with Dawson and Anderson probably both locking in 3 votes, I reckon, and Dacos no chance he got a vote.
Yeah, Dacos isn't getting any votes. It's interesting, because Dacos is still a pretty heavy bookie favourite, but it feels closer than what the bookies are saying.
Yeah, I saw one of these predictors that has Dacos before this round about 8 votes ahead of second place, so there are some that have it a bit closer. Yeah. It'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, the last few games are going to be huge in that as well, and Bontempelli is still on top of the pyramid. It's Bontempelli's pyramid. He did not take long to get to the top once he was fit and firing again.
Yep, and now we'll get into the power rankings. We start off the power rankings in the bottom 9, which stays entirely the same. They were all crap. Sydney were less crap than Essendon, and Melbourne were less crap than West Coast. And St Kilda were less crap than North. And then we move into the top 9. Hawthorn moved down from 8th to 9th. As we say, you reckon they're the most likely to miss the finals from now?
If I was to put my money on it, I think Hawthorn will miss the finals now, especially with Will Day going down.
I don't know if they're the 9th best team. I do think they're better than that, except who is the 9th best team?
Yeah, it's been tough to call for a few weeks now.
I actually don't know who I'd say. I'd probably have to have a serious think, and it depends on who's healthy.
Yeah.
But Hawthorn right now, they're the biggest risk of missing finals. Bulldogs, I think, currently sit in 9th, but you don't think they're going to stay there. Now, GWS in 8th place. They moved down 3 spots, and I think that's really deserved. It's been very difficult to move that many spots late in the year. You can see the bottom 9 all stayed in the exact same spot, but this was a monumental loss, which is hopefully it hasn't killed their momentum. I really enjoy watching this GWS team in full flight, but very concerning for them. Then Fremantle drop a spot. We're currently 5 minutes to go.
5 minutes left, and it's 4 points.
Wow. So if Fremantle lose this one to Carlton, either way, this is probably about where they sit, because it's been a really unconvincing performance. So I've got them dropping a spot against Gold Coast, who move up a spot based on just taking care of business. They are making sure that they end up in that top 8, taking care of business against Richmond, Damien Hardwick's old side. Now Collingwood were 1 2 weeks ago, and they were 1 for I think 12 or 13 straight weeks, and now 2 weeks later they move into 5th place on the power rankings. Big drop. And yeah, it's off the back of, you look at these 4 teams above them are all charging towards premiership favouritism. Meanwhile, Collingwood have lost 3 and 4. No convincing wins recently, and we know that they can be the best team in it when they're at their best, but they're not at their best right now, and they're going to have to find something. We're not sure what their midfield mix is going to be in finals. It's getting a bit late to figure it out. Now at 4, we move to the Western Bulldogs, who jump a full 5 spots. I don't know the last time that's happened this year in these power rankings, but this completely changed our opinion of the Dogs. So much talk from us and the mainstream footy media about how their record against top 9 teams has been really, really concerning this year. They seem to have just reversed the narrative this week. 88-point winners against a hot GWS who have just won 6 in a row. They just feel like when they're hot, their midfield is just going to steamroll you and their forward line is just going to be impossible to stop if they're getting constant entries. Sam Darcy and Aaron Norton, as Aidan mentioned earlier, the best key forward duo in the comp right now. Back-to-back weeks where they've both kicked 5+.
First time in 17 years.
Well, there you go. That's how well they're doing. And then you look at the top 3, you got Brisbane and Geelong both moving up a spot with the Collingwood drop, and then Adelaide sitting pretty in first place now, which they really, really deserve. Didn't play finals last year or the year before, and now they're sitting at the top of the ladder and the top of the power rankings.
Well, we've got some huge finals type games coming up. Big Hawthorn Collingwood game on Thursday night. We will see you all in the next one.